This quiz had a little bit of everything. It was actually, probably could have been considered a test because we had several sections of chapter 3 here. The first 3 questions, there was a video on this. All you got to do is state if it's linear or nonlinear. And I hope you guys remember that you cannot have exponents on variables. If you have an exponent on a variable, that becomes no longer a line, it's some type of curve. All right? So you can't have the power of 2. So this cannot be a line. This is actually something else. It's some type of curve, right? You can also not have variables multiplied together. Like right here you have an x and a y. You can't have those multiplied together. So this is not a line either. This is not a line, so you'd say no, no. This one is a line because it doesn't have any exponents on the variables and it doesn't have any variables multiplied together. So the only one that's a line is number 3. Numbers 4, 5, and 6. Rewrite the following in function form. We should all know that function form is y by itself. So on number 4, you don't have y by itself. All you got to do is subtract 2. Subtract 2. So you're going to have y equals 3x minus 2. That's it. You're done. By the way, I might as well mention this now. In the next sections of chapter 3, when they say function form, like let's say we're taking the final exam, you might not see this on your multiple choice answers. You might see it written like this. And I think I've mentioned this before, that y is the same thing as f of x. Okay? So you might see it like this on the final exam multiple choice as an answer. Okay? But on this answer, I'm cool with the y. Y equals 3x minus 2. Function form is getting y by itself. But just for future reference, for the final exam, you might not have a y here. You might have an f of x, which is the same exact thing. Okay? So number 5, what do? We simply divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. Y equals 2/3 x minus 2. Of course, you could write it as f of x equals 2/3 x minus 2. And that's your function form right there. Number 6, it was so easy that some people got confused. Function form is getting y by itself. Y is already by itself. It just, you don't want a negative sign. You want it to be positive. So you could just multiply everything by -1. This times -1, this times -1, this times -1. Everything by -1, you're going to have a positive 3, not a plus anymore. It's going to be a minus 2x equals positive y. And of course, let's have the y on the left side, and let's have the variable expression on the right side. And not only that, guys, let's write it in order. This right here, let's write it in order. What do I mean by write it in order? Let's write the variable term first, -2x, and then bring down that plus 3. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the answer I wanted to see on your answer spot. Okay. Of course, it could also be rewritten with f of x equals in place of y. Moving on to number 7. Rewrite in standard form. Now, standard form, in case you forgot, standard form is ax squared plus, oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Thinking algebra 2 here. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. That x squared business was when we deal with quadratics in algebra 2. But right now, that's our standard form, ax plus by equals c. So you obviously want the x and y on the left side of the equal sign, and we don't have the x on the left side, we have it on the right side. So let's move this over by subtracting 3x, canceling, subtracting 3x. Now you can't actually subtract 3x from y, so let's just rewrite everything. And again, I'm going to write it in order. -3x plus y, because that's a positive y, plus 2 equals now 0 on the right side of the equal sign. So I'm going to move the 2 over. I'm going to subtract 2, cancel, subtract 2. That way I could have my c value on the right side. And my new standard form equation is -3x plus y equals -2. Now, this is the answer. I'll accept this answer. That's a great answer. But I do want to also mention that on the final exam, if you're looking for the multiple choice answer, it might not be written like that. It might be written as a positive 3x and a negative y equals a positive 2. They might change all the signs just to be able to have the a value being positive. So on my test, either one of those is great. Let's move on. Jumping to number 8, I want the ax plus by equals c. So first of all, you don't want fractions, so let's multiply everything by 3 to get rid of those fractions. The 3's cancel, you're going to end up with 3y equals 2x minus 3. So we have no more fractions. Now let's just get the ax and by on the same side. So I'm going to get rid of the minus 2x by subtracting it, and I'm going to subtract it over here. Now you can't subtract y's with x's, so we're just going to rewrite it. And again, standard form has the x term first. So you really should have a negative 2x, a positive 3y, an equals, and a negative 3. And that's it. That's your standard form equation. What's the other one that you might see on a multiple choice test? Anybody? Okay, nobody. Minus 3y equals positive 3. This is what you might see on a multiple choice test. Either one's good for me, but the minus sign might not be there. It might change, which means you have to change the plus to a minus and the minus to a plus. Multiply everything by negative 1. Let's move on. Number 9 is just as easy. We did this on video. We did this on our homework. We need to multiply everything by what? 6. That way you could get rid of both fractions at the same time. You end up with 6y equals 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 times 1 is 3x. And then over here, the 6 divided by 3, let me do it in blue, is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4, so you have a plus 4. And then you just got to move the 3x over to the other side by subtracting 3x and subtracting 3x. You can't do it, so you rewrite it. This guy cancels. You have a negative 3x plus 6y equals 4. That's your standard form equation. And you could also change all the signs. Either one's acceptable. Time to get to the fun stuff. Numbers 10 and 11 is worth 2 points because you have to come up with the XY table. And you also have to graph the coordinates and draw the line. So this is a function form equation. Y is already by itself. You could plug in any numbers you want. The easiest numbers I think to plug in would be 0, 1, and 2. Remember, there are no fractions in this function form equation. If this were a 2/3, you would use 0, 3, and negative 3, right? But it's not a fraction, it's just a regular number 2. So let's just plug in 0. And when we think 2 right here times 0, because we plug in the 0 right there, 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 1, that is a negative 1. That is a coordinate right there, guys. Let's plug in 1. I'll even show my work right here. I want to say 2 times x, but instead of x, we're plugging in a 1, and then we have a minus 1 at the very end. So when you think about this, 2 times 1, that's 2, minus 1, the answer is 1. And that's another coordinate right there. And last but not least, let's plug in 2. I'm going to take this 2, plug it in right there. 2 times 2 is 4. I'm just going to write down the answer 4 minus 1. Final answer is 3. So when I plug in a 2, I get out a 3. Now we have 3 points. If I graph this first point, it says 0, negative 1, 0 on the x, negative 1 on the y. Put a dot right there. So I'm going to put a dot right there at 0, negative 1. Then I'm going to go to the next coordinate, which is 1, 1. So I go 1 on the x from the origin, 1 on the y, and I put a dot right there. 1, 1, there's my coordinate. And my final coordinate, now I already have 2 dots. That's already enough to draw my line. That's great. But I'm doing a third point just to be comfortable with the line that I just have. And if I go to 2, 3 from the origin, if I go 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3, and put a dot right there, then I'll know because, or I'll at least feel more comfortable because this line is crossing through that point. And that's what you're supposed to show right there. So if you got the wrong line, I gave you guys partial credit. I think I gave you 0.5. So make sure that you understand how to do it because we need to do it on the final exam. Now this guy, before even making an XY table, you have to divide everything by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So you're going to have y equals, there's really an invisible 1 in front of the x. So that's a 1/3 x minus 2. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our function form equation, and now we could go to an XY table, but instead of using 0, 1, and 2, we're always going to use 0 because 0 always works great. Anything 1/3 times 0, anything times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 2 is -2. So we have one coordinate already, 0, -2, which is right here. Let's plug in another value. I'm not going to plug in 1, right? I'm not going to plug in 1. Why not? Because if I plug in a 1 right here, I'm going to get a fraction 1/3. Then you got to subtract 2 and 1/3. That gets ugly, especially when you want to graph it on an XY plane. You want nice numbers. So let me not use 1. Let me use 3, okay? So if I use 3 as an input, now why am I picking 3? Because 3 is the denominator. Let me show you what happens right there. If you have the equation or the expression 1/3 x, and we're plugging in this 3 right in here, and of course we have a -2 at the end, it works out great because the 3's cancel out, and you really just have a 1 take away 2, and 1 take away 2 is -1. So -1 is my output for the input 3. And that's a coordinate 3, -1. Let's go to the coordinate 1, 2, 3, -1. You put a dot right there. And you could draw your line and you're done. That's a crooked line, I apologize. Of course, you are supposed to plug in -3 also, but there's a way to get around that. If you trust the work that you just did, then you could look at these two dots and realize that there's a slope right there. We already learned about slope. It goes up 1 over 3. So up 1 over 3, the slope is 1/3. If you use that slope backwards, over 3, down 1, you could go over 1, 2, 3, and down 1, and you could put a dot right there. And that, what that's saying, I mean, that extends your line, but what that's really saying is that this coordinate at -3, you also get -3 as an answer. So you could fill in your third coordinate by extending the slope, using the pattern of the slope. Let's move on to the next one. On this next one, we want to find the X and Y-intercepts, okay, to this equation. Always start by doing the X-int and the Y-int, and we should know how to find the X-intercept. How do we find the X-intercept? Set Y equal to 0 and solve. And the same thing for the Y-intercept. To find the Y-intercept, you have to set X equal to 0 and solve. So my problem's set up. All I need to do is realize that my Y value has to be 0. Here's Y. Let's put a 0 right there. Let me rewrite this whole thing. So we have -3x plus 4 times 0 equals 12. We all know that 4 times 0 is nothing. So you really just have the equation -3x equals 12. And if you divide by -3 and divide by -3, this will cancel and you'll have x equals -4, ladies and gentlemen. Now remember, that's your X-intercept. That's what we just found right here, the X-intercept. And how did we find that? We found that by setting Y equal to 0 and solving. For the Y-intercept, I'm going to set X equal to 0 and solve. So I'm going to rewrite this whole thing, but instead of having this X, I'm going to put a 0 in there in parentheses. So there's my equation. I'm going to put a 0 right there in place of the X. And of course, -3 times 0 is 0. It cancels out. So you really have the equation 4y equals 12. So we're going to divide by 4 to solve it. Divide by 4. You're going to have y equals 3. And that's your Y-intercept value. So ladies and gentlemen, what we're supposed to do next for the next point, you get 2 points for those. For the next point, you have to go, or for the next point on the test, you have to actually graph the X-intercept of -4 and the Y-intercept of 3. So the X-axis, here's the X-axis. Whoa. Let me erase that. You want to go to -4 on the X-axis. So that's right, -1, 2, 3, 4, right here, right on the edge. And for the Y-intercept, what do we get for the Y-intercept? 3. So let's go to the value 3 on the Y. So we know it crosses here, and we know it crosses up here. Now we are talking about the same line, so this line has to be graphed like this, because that line has both the X-intercept of -4 and the Y-intercept of 3.